The Pastimes is brought to you by Prairie Knights Casino and Resort.
The Battle of Killdeer Mountain. This is the Pastimes, your news from the edge of history. While the American Civil War was raging back on the eastern seaboard in its third year, conflict ensued out west. The Dakota conflict of 1862 in New Ulm, Minnesota, only added to the numerous and complex tensions forcing many Indians further west. In 1864, General Alfred Sully was chosen to lead a campaign in pursuit of the same Indians who were involved in the Dakota conflict of 1862. These Indians were reportedly gathered together on the west side of the Missouri River, attempting to subdue frontier settlements in Dakota, Minnesota, and Nebraska by preventing any further supplies and immigrants from traveling on the Missouri River. The tribes that the U.S. Army was now up against were the Yanktonai, Blackfeet, Minneconjou, and the Unkpapas. Operating out of Sioux City, General Alfred Sully gathered up 2 companies of the Dakota Cavalry in a concerted effort to protect incoming settlers. The 1864 expedition staged themselves at Fort Sully, just 4 miles below modern-day Pierre, South Dakota, now gathering in strength with 2 companies of Dakota Cavalry, Pope's Artillery Battery, the 6th Iowa Cavalry, Battalion of Cavalry from Minnesota, 3 companies of the 7th Iowa Cavalry, the 8th Minnesota Mounted Infantry, and finally the 3rd Minnesota Artillery. General Sully would prepare to move further north. Leaving Fort Sully, June of 1864, they reached the Missouri River and the site of Fort Rice, Dakota Territory by July 3rd. Fort Rice, which eventually quartered Custer's Company M, 7th Cavalry, was 20 miles south of where Fort Abraham Lincoln would be. Fort Rice would be General Sully's supply depot for his campaign and others to follow. The official campaign north started July 18th from Fort Rice, reaching a point by the Heart River where Dickinson, North Dakota is today. From there, General Sully proceeded to the Knife River, where his United States Indian Scouts had reported a substantially large-sized force of Indians. Between July 18th and the time General Sully reached the Killdeer Mountains, no Indians had been encountered, but he observed the aftermath of an immigrant train previously attacked by Indians on July 23rd. General Sully's encounter with the Sioux took place at a time when the Sioux's confidence was high, so confident that they kept over 1,600 lodges concentrated in one place. General Sully observed that these 5,000 to 6,000 warriors were strongly posted and protected by wooded country with high, rugged hills and deep ravines. Coincidentally, the enormous encampment along the Little Bighorn River in 1876 would have the same geographical type of protection for the Sioux during the Little Bighorn conflict of 1876. Awaiting General Sully's cavalry, infantry, artillery, and United States Indian Scouts was a sizable force of Unkpapas, Santees, Blackfeet, Yanktonai, Sans Arc, and Minneconjou. In just moments, these warriors immediately started circling General Sully's command to within a firing range of 200 yards. Seizing the opportunity of such close range, Sully's troops opened fire, reducing the Indians' numbers to the point that they retreated back to their camp. The Sioux, realizing they were losing ground, made their way back to protect and save their women and children. Following tactics that originated from the Civil War, General Sully gave orders for the artillery to open up on the Sioux camp for the initial attack, then send in the cavalry and infantry. All of Sully's companies of cavalry and mounted infantry converged on the Sioux encampment. Flanking attacks were made on Sully's troops in a battle that extended for 3 miles in a circular pattern. The Indians countered attack after attack, but were repulsed by Major Brackett's cavalry battalion and assisted by artillery, which resulted in the Indians' eventual demise. This conflict lasted all day, and after it was determined that there were no Indians present, the troopers, exhausted from the encounter, slept on the battlefield. With the Indians in flight, General Sully gave orders to Colonel Robert McLaren, 2nd Minnesota Cavalry, to destroy large amounts of food stores and property left by the retreating Indians. Huge piles of dried buffalo meat packed in buffalo skins, dried berries, tanned buffalo, elk, and deer hides, saddles, travois poles, and cooking utensils were all gathered up and burned. The surrounding woods were also set fire to, in order to make the destruction of property final. In the end, General Sully's losses were very minimal, with only 5 killed and 10 wounded. The loss of lives from the Indians were significantly larger at a figure well over 150, according to General Sully's official report to the Department of Dakota at Fort Snelling, Minneapolis.
Right, in conclusion, last June 5th, 2009, Alec and Grace DeVernack from the Diamond City Ranch around the battlefield, Killdeer Mountains, donated an extensive 1,500-piece artifact collection to the University of Dickinson in the Theodore Roosevelt Center. The collection contains spear points, pistol, and rifle cartridges, and is a testimony to the battle, but more, they would like to donate this collection to honor both the soldiers and the Indians that fought there.